Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. If you've listened before, welcome back. And if you're new to the show, good news. You can listen to these episodes in any order you like because each episode is focused on one Andrew McMahon song from his catalog. Today we have some returning guests, and they were on the show a few years back to talk about songs like Punk Rock Princess and Constantine by Something Corporate. Then I was on their show a few years back to talk through every single album in Andrew's discography. So now that we're in the year of Jack's Mannequin, the return of Jack's Mannequin, I should say, and a big tour has been announced recently, and that's coming up pretty quick, we're going to talk about a song again from that project. And we focused a lot on everything in transit this year already because it is the 20th anniversary. Wingman Steve and Chris-183, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Wait, we're not talking about Punk Rock Princess?
No, we already covered that one, unfortunately. I think we covered it so well that I don't think we could say anything more about that song.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll talk about Jack's Mannequin with you.
Thanks,
Steve. Don't worry.
I know Steve loves something corporate, so if you want to talk something corporate, you can do that. But yeah, we're going to try to
I love it all.
Yeah, we're going to focus a little bit on Jack's Mannequin this time, though, with maybe some throwbacks. I don't know. Wherever the conversation goes, it's cool with me. But hey, it's been a while since you guys have been on, actually, so we have some new listeners since then. So why don't you go? I'll have each of you tell a little bit about yourselves, and then tell us about your show, your High School Never Ends podcast.
Steve, I know that you love to tell the story about our show.
Oh.
So I'm just going to pause and let you do that before we talk about ourselves.
I think maybe the last time we were on Something in the Wilderness, I think you did it. So yeah, I'll take it this time. Hi, I'm Wingman Steve, and I was given that name because I'm a great wingman, and I used to be on the radio back in college and post-college, and I was a stunt boy and did all the dumb things on the morning show and got beat up by people and ate things and threw up. And that was a fun name, Wingman Steve. So I brought that along when we created our show. And our show is called High School Never Ends, a pop punk dad podcast. And while we are extreme Bowling for Soup fans, it's not a Bowling for Soup podcast. It is in reference to a very good Bowling for Soup song called High School Never Ends. However, really just we talk about pop punk music and pop punk adjacent music. So ska, emo, Midwest emo, all that kind of stuff. We talk about 90s alternative. Sometimes we talk about movies. Sometimes we don't talk about anything at all. But we have a good time together, and we tend to do monthly themes. So check us out. We're on all the social things at HSNE Pod, like High School Never Ends Pod. And yeah, I like Bowling for Soup too.
And I see the poster in your background, Steve, and I've got that sticker on my computer downstairs, as well as a T-shirt and a hat. Thanks to the podcast, your podcast. So,
and if any of your listeners want a free High School Never Ends sticker, just send us a message on Instagram, and we will send them the same stickers that we probably sent to you or gave to you in person.
Yeah, cool.
Well, not much to add there, Steve, but he basically told the tale. I know that we did maybe tell the tale last time about how we became a podcast. I'll tell it one more time. Steve called me one time. He said we should do a podcast. I said, okay. And here we are. And we
short
did a podcast.
version.
Yeah. I mean, but that is how it happened, right?
But I don't have the credentials that Steve 183 does, or I'm Chris 183. Steve, Wingman Steve, sorry, I'm all mixed up tonight. I was not on the radio. I have no skills in radio. I just like to talk about pop punk music, and I just like to talk. So honestly, Steve and I, we kind of go back and forth on a lot of stuff that we talk about. Some of that has been Andrew McMahon music. Some of that has been Newfound Glory, but we always have a good time in the end. I feel like I've gotten just a little bit better from when we started. What do you think, Steve?
Chris, you've been so good the whole time, but you don't give yourself enough credit. This is humble, Chris 183. Chris had a podcast before either Steve or we had a podcast. That's the reason why I drunkenly texted you and said we should do a podcast, because you did one. So I thought you knew what you were doing.
So he had the experience that you were looking for, and in the co-host and producing side, right?
Well, so back then, Zoom wasn't like the online meetings recording was not as easy as it was.
Uh-huh.
So Chris was always like, I'll let him tell. It was some sort of a nostalgia podcast about the 90s and video games and stuff. And he's like, Steve, you should come on my show and we'll talk. But you need to like buy a microphone and do this and that. And it was it was quite complicated. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier now.
That feels like it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. But now we're here on this show, and I'm excited about that.
And I've been listening to your show since 2020, just before I started this podcast. You guys inspired me, for one, and I've been listening just about every week since. So thanks for putting out a good show.
Almost every week. How dare you miss a week?
Right. I may
what
have missed a
episodes
week.
have you not listened to?
I may have missed a week here and there. Yes,
Just kidding.
But I did just start listening to your recent episode on your favorite band, Steve. So I'm sure that will be a very exciting episode to listen to. Ludo.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys have had guests, all kinds of guests, fans of the genre. You've had Ryan Key of Yellowcard. You've had Andrew McMahon himself on the podcast talking about his music and his history in the industry. And recently you also had, you mentioned him already here, but you had Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup on recently, about a month or two ago, right?
Yeah. February.
So that must have been a full circle moment, because your podcast is, like you said, is named after one of his songs. And then he actually came on the show, very complimentary of your podcast and complimentary of the name. And
I mean, it was always a bucket list type of guest, because our show is obviously titled after a Bowling for Soup song, and we did have Rob Felicetti, who is their bassist right now, and he was in Patent Pending as well. So we've gotten a couple of those the Bowling for Soup dudes, but he was one that he's always said, like, yes, I'll come on, but he's a busy guy. He's got a million things going on, and eventually the stars aligned. It happened, and it was really cool. He was so nice, and the most down to earth guy. So it was fantastic. It was just like talking with friends.
That's what exactly what I was going to say, Steve. It
Friends
sounded
with big
like
hits.
It sounded like you guys were just like old buddies talking. It was great. Side note, speaking of Rob, I got to hang out with Rob's brother recently on the Rock Boat. His band Don't Panic played on the Rock Boat, so I saw a couple sets of theirs. They did a cabin show, so it was basically a late night party in someone's little cabin, hanging out, doing acoustic music. So
I'm so jealous of you going on all these cruises. I love cruises. I went on one for spring break about a year ago, and it's only my second one ever, and I love it. I think cruises are so much fun. So I had my eye on the Emo's Not Dead cruise, and I said to my wife, maybe we should go on one of these cruises, and she's like, if I was on a boat with a bunch of emo kids, I'd probably jump overboard. So
don't recommend.
Yeah, I don't think I can ditch her for an entire week or whatever it is, 4 or 5 days. So I don't know if I'll ever get to do the cruise, but I think it's awesome.
I do enjoy it. I do feel very fortunate I get to do that, but it was a lot of fun. So so Rob's name definitely came up, and Bowling for Soup obviously came up, but on the Rock Boat. And
Chris, do you cruise? Have you cruised?
No.
Oh, you should take the family on a cruise. It's awesome.
I've never been on a cruise in my life.
It's
never,
so good.
not Carnival. And I told you why. Like, I have nightmares of like trying to eat my dinner and having somehow get sucked into a Congo line. I don't
It could
want to.
happen.
Like, I just want to eat my buffet food and be left alone. And I feel like that's impossible on a cruise.
I did not get sucked into any conga lines, and I was on the cruise for 7 days.
You were the lucky one.
My personal experience.
Yeah, and there's no conga lines on Andrew McMahon's cruise or the Rock Boat, so rest assured. Yeah,
No.
Probably two separate things there.
So I would go by myself then, because my wife has no interest in that.
Yeah.
So I would just be a guy on the cruise on my own.
So let's talk about what we're here to talk about today, and that is Jack's Mannequin, the specific song. I would argue that this may be the song of Jack's Mannequin, but we can debate that if you like. And I put it that way because I'm pretty sure people who have heard of Jack's Mannequin or seen them at a festival may not necessarily be a fan. If they know a song or two or three by Jack's Mannequin, I would say they probably know this one if they know who Jack's Mannequin is. But this might be the first one that comes to mind when people hear Jack's Mannequin. It was a single, but also arguably the song on this transitional album for Andrew that probably kept more of the sound from something corporate than most of the stuff as he moved on into his career. If you don't know this song, you probably don't know Jack's Mannequin. But if you do go to see Andrew McMahon in concert, you might know this one as the one where Andrew jumps off the piano these days. Now, he used to do that a lot more often, but this is where he still jumps off the piano. We are talking about the mixtape, and I can't believe it took me 90 episodes to get
Wow.
to the mixtape. As big of a song this is. Of course, the artist we're talking about today, as I've already stated, is Jack's Mannequin. The mixtape was track 2 on Everything in Transit. Everything in Transit was released on August 23rd, 2005, and this was the second single released prior to the album. And this single came out on July 19th, 2005. Think about it, guys. Where were you in 2005? Maybe you don't remember where you were when this album dropped or whatever, but like, where was your lives in 2005?
Go ahead, Steve.
I know exactly where I was. I was in State College, Pennsylvania. I probably should have graduated that June because that would have been my 4 years. But I was on the 4.5 year plan, as the people that screw up their freshman year too bad tend to do. So this was actually the first. I always said to myself that I wanted to spend a summer in State College at Penn State because it's a totally different experience. There's almost nobody there, and I lived in a fraternity house, and you could stay in the house, and we had a pool, and it was just a much chiller experience. So the summer of 2005, I lived at the house. I was working several jobs. I worked at the radio station as the stunt boy, and I also did afternoons and some evenings. I worked at Best Buy, and I worked at Sunglass Hut. So I worked 3 part-time jobs, probably just to support my concert and natural light habits. And yeah, it was a very good time. I had a half a year left to be in college before real life started.
Nice. How about you, Chris?
And for me, real life had started. 2005, the summer of, is when I got married. So I had a job. I had gotten married. I was out of college. We had our first daughter. A lot of stuff going on that year.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on.
Well, happy upcoming 20 years then.
Oh, it is.
It is. It's
Oh,
that 20th
no.
anniversary. You just said 2005 you got married, so
Take your
That's
wife
true.
on a cruise.
Maybe I could take her on a
you
cruise,
could.
right?
Yeah. Holiday from Real goes on sale soon. No big deal.
I gotta say though, listen. The mixtape is a fantastic song, and we're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking about the average person, I don't think that this is the song. Like if so, all right. If you know Jack's Mannequin, you're probably a fan of Andrew McMahon, right? I was so anticipating this because I loved Something Corporate. And by the way, no spoilers. What spoilers? Whatever. Everything in Transit is the best album that he has put out, no matter what the thing. Okay, it is the definitive Andrew McMahon album. But I must say that I think that Dark Blue is the song that people think of because Dark Blue, and I don't know why, because I like Mixtape better than Dark Blue, personal opinion.
Same.
But I think that Dark Blue got more alternative radio play and has some alternative radio longevity. So, like, for example, Steve, I think you have Sirius as well. And I listen to a lot of 90s on 9 and Lithium and pop rocks and stuff like that. But then there's also Alt Nation. That's probably where it is. Alt Nation is the one. I feel like Dark Blue is the only thing that there's any potential that I might hear on a radio.
Really? So these days you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not wilderness songs.
Right.
Previous stuff.
So how about 20 years ago? Do you feel like you were hearing Dark Blue on the radio and not mixtape? I don't remember hearing these songs on the radio, and I might just be bad memory. But
I don't think I heard one song by Something Corporate or Jack's Mannequin ever on any radio station ever.
Never.
Maybe like the local Philadelphia station, if Andrew McMahon was coming to town and doing an in-studio appearance, they might have, played it or something. But no, I don't. I only know it off of like Sirius stations, and it's just Dark Blue.
Let me ask a question too about the whole Something Corporate Jack's Mannequin transition. When Andrew McMahon transitioned to, and this is a question to the experts, by the way. When you guys found out that he transitioned to Jack's Mannequin, was that a big deal? Was it like, why is he leaving this band? What is he doing? Like, why are we getting a brand new band? It doesn't make any sense. Or like, what was your thoughts there?
Yeah, the way I found out about it was via an Entertainment Weekly article that summer, and it said the guy from Something Corporate. And honestly, when I was a fan of Something Corporate, I didn't know the name Andrew McMahon, but I read that the guy from Something Corporate, who I found out was named Andrew McMahon at the time, is doing like a solo kind of venture. So it was marketed as, he's in Something Corporate, but he's also doing this other thing for a little bit. And that's how when you look back at the history, that's kind of how it was painted as well. Like, they're going on hiatus for a little bit while he does this solo thing. Turned out to be a lot longer than that, a lot more involved than that. But to answer your question outright, I was thrilled. I was like, oh, the guy from Something Corporate's doing another album. Like, I don't care he singer, songwriter, pianist, and I loved what I had heard from them in Something Corporate, so I was super excited. How about you, Steve?
I think I'm pretty sure that I knew, or the world knew, that Something Corporate had stopped as a band. Is that correct or incorrect?
It might have been, but I didn't have that much knowledge of what was going on behind the scenes back then. And not that maybe it wasn't so behind the scenes, but I wasn't the kind of person who was like researching that on the internet back then. Not like I am nowadays. I might have learned about it in hindsight.
Yeah, I think I had just known that Something Corporate was done, and then I was just like, oh, Andrew McMahon's doing another thing. I better check this out, and then did. Highly anticipated for sure. I think anything that he was doing, because I liked, and reaching the Andrew McMahon super fans, the listeners of this show, everybody's got their own opinion. Like, North is not really my thing. I know that a lot of people love North, and some of the songs are great, but I wasn't as into North. You might even say that I was ready for something a little different.
Mm-hmm. And that's fair. I was the opposite coming out of North. I was like, that was so great. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. I can't wait to see what this guy does next. And we got Transit out of that. So
Yeah, and I feel like North, and I hate to generalize, but and again, I don't listen to North on a regular basis, but from what I remember, it was more of the slow piano stuff and less of the guitar heavy stuff. And I mean, when we talk about mixtape and a lot of the Jack's Mannequin stuff, I feel like, we're kind of going back to like a song like Hurricane, where the guitar is very much featured. I mean, just to hear
front and
this
center.
song.
Yeah.
The way that it starts, I mean, it's being led by the guitar, and I love piano rock. I love all of Andrew's stuff, but it seems like, at least for the first like 2/3 of the song, it's guitar driven. It's not until later in the song where it slows down, where the piano, I feel like, really shines, and that's a great part about the song, is it both get to have their space. But I think Everything in Transit did bring a little bit more of that rock element and less of the slower stuff.
Chris, do you remember hearing this song or knowing this song? Were you aware of this when it came out in 2005, or was that something that kind of you came across later?
I lost touch after Something Corporate.
Okay.
I completely lost touch. Yep. Nope. So I had no idea.
Cool. Okay. And I know you've listened to this album because we did that deep dive together a few years ago, which I'm so impressed when you guys would do that on the show. And I don't know how I know you've pulled back to mostly focusing on single albums or artists as opposed to going through every single album of a discography. I don't know how you guys did it. I mean,
We don't either. We talk about it all the time. We're like, how did we used to do that? We used to do an episode and talk about 9 albums.
Yeah,
like, how,
more.
I don't know.
Yeah, because that was 9 albums we covered on that episode or so. But you guys I think you did Fall Out Boy, Newfound Glory.
We basically did them all. That's why we don't do it anymore, because anybody that had like a whole bunch of albums, not anybody, but like for the most part, the ones that we wanted to cover. We're 270 episodes in. Like, we've done those full discography episodes.
Yeah.
And it's tough to prepare for it.
It's wild, yeah.
We're getting older. We got real jobs. We got kids. So
yeah, you can't just listen to music all the time, although we would love to do that, right? But so I gave you a much easier assignment, Chris. I said, can you just listen to this one song? Were you guys fans of One Tree Hill, or had you ever heard of that show? Are you familiar with it at all?
Steve's a big fan. Yeah, I just want to kind of break that right here.
I mean,
I think my connection to the WB severed somewhere around Dawson's Creek in maybe 1998 or 1999.
Dawson's Creek, that's a good call out. I was going to compare it to like 90210 or Melrose Place in the 90s, but yeah, you're on the right track. I have learned that a lot of female fans of Jack's Mannequin, of Andrew McMahon, came from the One Tree Hill era, because some of his music was featured on that TV show. So actually 2 songs, not surprisingly, Dark Blue and the mixtape were both featured on that. And I believe he gained a lot of fans from that.
That's different than Silent Hill, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
very different. One Tree Hill and Silent Hill, 2 different places.
Was Andrew McMahon on the Silent Hill movie soundtrack? Or the video game soundtrack?
I don't think so. I think, maybe in his later era, I could see him doing more of that, but
I'm not. I don't even think you know what that is, Steve.
Yeah. It was a video game and it was a movie. I played the game and I saw the movie.
Do we know what One Tree Hill was all like? What was that
Yeah,
about? Just
the Silent Hill had no concerts with a bunch of teenagers fawning over Andrew McMahon and Fall Out Boy, but One Tree Hill did. They had a club, kind of like the Peach Pit on 90210. If you ever saw that, I don't know if you did, but that's kind of what
I
I
did see
equate it
that.
to. They had like a little club restaurant. Bands came and played. Like there was an episode I caught on YouTube. I actually watched part of it. Jack's Mannequin and Fall Out Boy were in the same episode.
So were they in the episode or just the songs were featured?
They were in the episode. They played a show
Oh,
at the club.
that's pretty
You know,
cool.
so can you imagine in real life, Jack's Mannequin and Fall Out Boy in this little club in 2005 or whatever year? I assume it was 2005, 2006 maybe. Be pretty
hmm.
amazing. But
Listen, Simple Plan was in a Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen movie. So
I wasn't aware of that.
that was a Jeopardy question. They were a High School Never Ends Jeopardy question, not a real
Yeah, yeah,
Jeopardy
yeah.
question. Yeah, they were like trying to get tickets to see a show, and it was like, what was the band? And it was Simple Plan.
Did not know Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen were fans, but that's cool. So on this track, Andrew plays the organ, bells, and he sings the vocals. We've got Jim Wirt on bass, Robert Raw Anderson, better known as Bobby Anderson, on guitar. So Steve, that's the guitar you hear is Bobby. Patrick Warren on the Chamberlin, which is an electromechanical keyboard, and Tommy Lee of Motley Crue on drums. I always like to make a point to say that because it's still so weird to me. And we had some programming done by CJ Erickson. But this song, as we all know, is about a mixtape. So I want to know from you guys because you guys make mixes of your favorite songs by an artist or an album or a discography in the past of all of your favorites, and you put them on a mix and you put them out there. But what are the good qualities of making a mix? Like if you were to make a mix for somebody right now, like what are the qualities of a good mixtape or mix CD, if those still existed?
Ooh. When's the last time you made a mixtape, Steve? Did you make
Um,
one recently?
yeah, no, it would be 2010.
You
2010?
knew that exactly
But
when, huh?
Yeah, because I made it for a girl, and now she's my wife.
Oh, nice. It's perfect.
that works. That actually works.
Well,
Okay.
when you first meet somebody and you're like, oh, this is the crappy music I listen to. Here's a variety of it. You know,
Okay, so what
what do
what
Well,
you like?
what are
okay.
the
Let me
qualifiers?
ask.
So what kind of songs do you put on there though?
But let me ask you a question though. Are we talking about a mixtape that we're giving to somebody or one for ourselves?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So someone a mixtape you would give to somebody. Like what qualifies a good song to put on a mixtape to give to somebody?
I would say that first of all, they'd be have to be songs that I like enough. They don't have to be songs I love because remember you're making it for somebody else.
Hmm.
But it would also have to have songs on there that maybe they were bands that this person's not as familiar with that you want them to get a taste
Hmm.
of that band. So we always talk about this on our show. Like if you were going to give somebody one song from this band to get them started, what would it be? That's definitely something I would choose for a mixtape to give to somebody because I want them to hear the songs I think that would really get them interested. So
In those artists.
absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So I'll hand it to Steve for a point, and we'll go back and forth or whatever.
And absolutely number one is that your mixtape or your mix CD, because I think mixtapes are definitely a thing of the past, but a mix CD maybe could still have, or a playlist is probably what it's become now, right? If Jack's Mannequin was writing this song now, it would be, this is my playlist for her. It's like I chose every song with my fingers. That still works. Okay. The main thing is it just has to have a theme.
Hmm.
It has to have a theme. So is it a romantic playlist or a mixed album? Is it, an I miss you, a long distance kind of thing? Is it a party kind of thing? Because I made a whole lot, Chris. I know you have. You make a lot of playlists and mix CDs for parties. Maybe even the party has a specific theme. Maybe
Hmm.
it's a Halloween thing. Maybe it's a beer. Chris used to do a beer Olympics. Like maybe it's something to do with that. It's got to start there. And then from there, you want to kind of stick to the theme. It definitely has to have a good kickoff track, right? It's got to draw you in
Hmm.
and leave you wanting more. It's got to be a traditional, like 13, 14 songs max. Like we're doing them in waves, not in MP3s. It can't be 50 songs, you can't, or 300 songs.
Right.
So I think that you just have to stick to a theme, and then whatever that theme is, it's whatever you think that theme is to you, and that's how you put a good one together.
I disagree though. I think that's wrong.
Wow. Okay, that was such a non-controversial answer.
Well, no, I want to tell you I think it's wrong because I do not subscribe to that philosophy. I like randomness in my mixtape. I like to go from all the way up here and basically make the person listening to my mixtape say, what is wrong with you? Like why would you go from Britney Spears to Eminem? Like that makes no sense. I feel good about that. Like so that's
I'm
that's
sure
where I
you
would
do, but the
go.
recipients of said tapes, they don't
May
have any
not.
continuity. They think that you're a psychopath. They're, calling therapists to schedule appointments for you.
They're like,
My
wow,
purpose for a
that's good.
mixtape has been it's kind of a little bit of a combination of some of what each of you said. So I do disagree with some of what you said. So I'll start with I agree with Steve in that it's got to be something to draw you in. I agree more with Chris in a little bit of the randomness, not too far random. I don't think I've ever put Britney Spears on a mixtape. Although I guess, it would depend on who I'm making it for. But I don't really go for themes in my mixtapes. For me, it's more for that person. I agree completely with what Chris said in that you've got to give them kind of a taste of the artist that you want them to learn about, and it's got to be something to draw their attention to that artist and maybe think, maybe I'd like to hear more of them. But basically, it's songs that I like that I think they would like. I do want to talk more about specific mixtapes here
Chris
in a
wants
little
it to be
bit.
songs that he likes that the other person is going to hate.
Yeah, that'll just throw them off and think he's a psycho, I guess. No, I want to get their attention. I want to draw them in. I want to be like, oh, you know what? I like that random Radiohead song so much that I think I might listen to more Radiohead now. Or they'll just think this is crap, which probably happen more often. But I definitely want to come back to that subject here in a little bit and talk more about like example mix CDs. But first, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about live history of this song, a little bit about live music regarding Jack's Mannequin. According to Setlist FM, the song's been played live a grand total. So this song, Mixtape, has been played live a grand total of 593 times, 227 of them by Jax, 73 Andrew solo, and 293 of them in the modern era, Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. And not surprisingly, it's been played all 3 times by Jack's Mannequin in the last 6 months that they've played shows. Holiday from Real Cruise, we've already mentioned. Venice, California for the pop-up show in January. And they played Innings Festival last month. All had the mixtape on the set list. Now, I am 100% confident that anytime Jack's Mannequin plays this year or anytime in the future, that you will hear the mixtape on that set list. If you guys happen to have a ticket to a Jack's Mannequin show, if you went to see Jack's Mannequin or maybe you caught them at a festival, like I know you guys have both been to Four Chords, something like that, what would your reaction be if you went to that show and they didn't play the mixtape?
I talked about something similar actually in that Ludo episode because Ludo is a band that plays a lot of deep tracks and they play multiple nights in a row, so there's different set lists. And I said that sometimes if they don't play the song you want them to hear, like you kind of want to be upset, like you're a little upset you didn't hear it, but you can't necessarily blame them. I think a band like Jack's Mannequin that has a limit, if they're touring as Jack's Mannequin, if they're touring as Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness or something else, and they don't play this. So the last time I saw them was years ago, and it was Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, and he did. I'm pretty sure he played Dark Blue. I don't think he played. He didn't play this.
Mm-hmm.
He played one Something Corporate song I remember, and one Jack's Mannequin song. And I wouldn't be upset if you're touring as Jack's Mannequin though. This must be on the set list 100%. And if I went to a Jack's show and I didn't see this, yeah, I'd probably be like, why on earth? Like, I would have to dissect what the reason is. Did the person that he make the mixtape for, was that somebody that he is in a feud with? This must be played, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the only time I would say that I'd be okay with it, like if he was, I agree with Steve though. I think that if it's Jack's Mannequin, like this kind of sets itself apart as a song that you're probably going to want to play as a crowd pleaser, because people are going to want to hear this if they're a fan of this band. But if Jack's Mannequin has no music and he wants to promote that, and a lot of that's going to be on the playlist. Then he's going to throw in, a couple something corporate, a couple Andrew McMahon in the wilderness, and the time frame is limited. I potentially could see him leaving it off, but I don't even know a world where he would.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure a world where, as Jack's Mannequin, he would lead this off. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, it is their second most. I know that artists pay attention to this when they do tours, especially these reunion tours where they've been away for a few years, and they probably pay attention to top streaming songs, right? And this is the second most streamed song out of Jack's Mannequin, the first being the one we've already mentioned, Dark Blue, of course. Yeah, I can't imagine as Jack's Mannequin, I agree with the both of you that I can't imagine they wouldn't play this one. The reason I ask is because it came up on a couple episodes ago here, and I was talking with two fans who have seen Andrew countless times, and kind of like me, at times we're like, and I try not to be demanding as a fan, like, oh, they should play these songs and not these songs. I just, in the end, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be like, they played what they played, and I'm going to be okay with it. I'm just going to have to be okay with it because I like the music. But, you get picky as a fan, and you say, well, I've heard Dark Blue in the mixtape about 20 times in concert. It'd be really cool to hear some deep cuts. But you also got to understand the average fan, right? Most people going don't know the B-sides and the deep cuts and the end of the album tracks and so you got to be fair to everybody and say, okay, you're gonna get the Dark Blues and the mixtapes and the bangers. The Resolution, I'm sure, will be up there.
Not only that, but I mean, Jack's Mannequin hasn't been a band in a very, very long time.
Right.
So
right.
if you've been privy enough to see an Andrew benefit show or something along those lines where they play multiple Jack's Mannequin songs, you may have heard this. But like me, like I was Jack's Mannequin only had a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
I never saw Jack's Mannequin as a band live, and I see a lot of freaking shows. So for me, I've never seen Jack's Mannequin. So if I see them live, this has got to be on a short list. I've got a few that maybe are ahead of it, but it's got to be there.
Yeah, and I knew I was asking this question to the right guys because you guys probably aren't the ones that would go to a Jack's Mannequin show and be like, I want them to play that one track at the end of that one album that, nobody else knows the name of. But you want to hear, there's songs you want to hear, and you may know, I know, Steve, you know the whole Everything in Transit album front to back, to be fair, but they only had 3 albums, and they had I don't know, arguably 5 really big songs. That was kind of where I was going with that, but speaking of which, is there any other Jack's Mannequin songs besides what we've mentioned, Dark Blue and the mixtape, that you would absolutely expect to hear at a Jack's Mannequin show? I'm just curious, are there any ones that come to mind that either of you are like, well, they'd probably have to play that one too if they're going to play the mixtape?
I mean, I would have a short list of basically, 4 or 5 songs that I would fully expect. If it's a Jack's Mannequin, let's even say it could be a festival set, which is relatively short. I think the mixtape is on there for sure, but I think Dark Blue has got to be on there for sure. Holiday from Real is probably the number 1 song that I would say like I must hear, and the Resolution you mentioned, and there's Crash and Spinning. These are ones that would be below that. But I think those are the top 4, at least in my mind, that like I would expect, like guaranteed, no way being left off, unless Andrew has some sort of inner demon with a song that the rest of us don't know about. Those 4 got to be on there.
Well, I'm also looking at streaming numbers just on Spotify, and you skipped Bruised. That seems to be the number 3 streamed song here. So maybe that one, maybe that's in the mix there.
That one's close to my heart.
It's close to your heart. Why?
Was that on the mixtape for your now wife?
No, that was a song that I went on vacation with a girl I was dating at the time. We went on vacation together to Las Vegas, and it was right around this time that the album came out, and the whole like leaving on a plane and don't know if I'm going to see you again, and all the plane themes. It was just something that really just kind of stuck with me, and I remember that song kind of reminds me of that specific trip and that specific time in my life. But even though I think that that's one of my most memorable songs, I would be less surprised if that was left off than Dark Blue, Holiday from Real, Resolution mixtape.
I believe it, Chris, but I'm also like kind of shocked that that's the 3rd most streamed song by Jack's Mannequin. That's That's wild to
And
me.
3 million more streams than Holiday from Real.
Yeah, that's
3 million.
that is surprising, actually. I think it had something to do. So it was on the Snakes on a Plane soundtrack, as well as there was an acoustic version on the Punk Goes Acoustic comp. So that's probably where that comes from, I'm assuming.
On Spotify, the album was remastered in 2015, and I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder if it could potentially the streams have gotten reset at that point when they re-released it as like a remaster.
Well, these are all 2015 remastered. So all
Right.
these numbers here, they're all Dark Blue, the mixtape, Bruised, Holiday from Real. It's all
But
remastered.
what
It's
I'm
all
saying is, could
2015.
Holiday from Real between whenever Spotify started and 2015 potentially have had a whole ton of streams that maybe got lost when it was remastered?
I think they combined them, to be honest, because for example, when an artist releases a single and then they release the full album after that or whatever, or a single after the full album, those are combined, whether it's the song off of the single and the song off. I do believe they're combined, but I don't know for sure.
I don't trust a man to make that correct.
Well, I don't either. I mean, they could just be making up numbers for all I know. That's very possible as well.
Because it is very surprising to me that for sure that Holiday from Real will be less than Bruised.
Yeah.
I believe them. I believe them. 100%.
100% of the numbers have to be true because the internet said so. I'm surprised neither of you said. So another one that comes to mind that I think is big, in at least in the fan base, maybe not outside the hardcore fan base, but I would think "Swim" is kind of like the ballad. It's not off of Everything in Transit, but it's like I remember specifically when Andrew played that at Warped Tour 2008 before the album came out. And I remember thinking, "Oh, what's this? This is the new song." And they played "Swim" before the album even came out at Warped Tour, which seems like an odd Warped Tour choice, but it worked, I guess.
I'm very lopsided when it comes to my Andrew fandom. I definitely have certain albums with each of the projects that I am way more enthusiastic about than others. So Everything in Transit, for sure. Swim was off of
The follow-up, Glass Passenger.
Glass Passenger. Okay. I think maybe I just liked. I know I liked Crashing and Spinning so much in the Resolution.
Yeah.
That maybe Swim just isn't one that's like stuck in my brain as a must play.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, I'll be honest. It's not one of my favorites, but it just seems like it's a beloved song in the fan base. That's why I brought that one up. I mentioned this earlier. Jack's Mannequin is touring this year. They're going to actually a surprising amount of cities. I was surprised at how many they're hitting. He's really just going full throttle this year. I know the most recent one was Steve, you're out in Philly, and Chris, you're in Pittsburgh. I know they're coming to Jersey. They're coming to Philly. They're coming to Pittsburgh. Are either of you by chance seeing Jack's Mannequin or thinking about seeing Jack's Mannequin?
I like how you said "use" because you were talking about New Jersey.
Use guys.
Any use guys.
I like that.
I did not intend to, but maybe that just came out. I don't know why. I never say that.
One of my it's not a regret. It was actually a very good move when I met my wife, which was back around 2010. Yeah, it was that summer. Something Corporate did a reunion, and I had tickets. And this was the first time she invited me to go to a wedding with her, and I had to give up. I sold my tickets on Craigslist to go to that, and haven't been able to really catch them too much since then. Just talking about Andrew in general, because that was Something Corporate, different than Jack's Mannequin. But yes, I am 100% going. I have 2 tickets to the Philadelphia show. I got them. They were too expensive, to be honest with you. They were
Really?
very pricey. Yeah, they were.
I think I paid $60 for Pittsburgh, right? Was it more than that?
It was 70 before the fees.
Wow. Yeah, that's more than Pittsburgh was, because I think I paid 60 after fees, maybe 65. Maybe.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
There wasn't really a way that I wasn't buying those tickets, but I bought 2 tickets. I guess my wife will probably come with me, or if she doesn't want to go, or if we don't want to pay for a babysitter, I'll invite somebody else. But yeah, I'm definitely going. When I saw that tour was coming up, I got the tickets like the day they went on sale or the pre-sale or whatever.
And Philly is the first weekend of the tour, so that's great.
Why wouldn't you just come to Pittsburgh and join us here?
Yeah, we'll be in Pittsburgh.
It's a long drive, dude. It's a long drive. But I do usually
worth
make
it, though.
a summer
So
trip to
worth it.
Pittsburgh, so I haven't planned that out yet. And you know what? If I happen to be coming to Pittsburgh, and what day of the week is the Pittsburgh show?
Friday the 13th of June.
Boom.
Friday the 13th of June. Oh, well, we'll see. The Philly show I think is the 8th, which is the Sunday
Prior, yeah.
before that. We'll see. Chris, our buddy Stu was asking me if I'm coming to Pittsburgh this summer, and I said I'm gonna wait and see what the forecourt announcement is before I decide what's the deal. But you never know. Maybe that could be a thing.
Yeah.
And it's only fair. It's only fair because I was out in Philly last, so now it's your turn to come here.
Well, you've never come to a concert with me here. I came to a concert with you. I drove to Pittsburgh and went to Forecourt.
Yeah, they played music at that restaurant. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Not live music, but there was music there.
Yeah.
Steve, where's Andrew? Where's Jack's Mannequin going to be playing in Pittsburgh?
They are playing at Stage AE, which is the indoor-outdoor venue. But to my dismay, apparently they're playing the indoor venue in June, which is shocking.
Aww.
I actually bought the tickets, not specifically. I mean, maybe I would have gone anyway, but I'm going to another, the local show here in Columbus. But we thought it would be cool to see an outdoor Andrew show this summer. And so we're like, Pittsburgh is at the outdoor venue. So we bought the tickets, and then then someone pointed out to me that it specifies indoor venue on the website.
They played outdoors Sunday Corporate played outdoors last summer in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which I would have loved to go to, but I was on family vacation that week, and I could not ditch my family.
I wonder if they just say that on the tickets, and if they don't do it, I'd be curious, because why would they do that?
I have no idea. Well, I have a theory. I can't say I have no idea. I was also told by somebody on the Andrew McMahon Discord that Stage AE plans their smaller shows in the indoor venue, but if they grow to, if they sell enough tickets, they could move it to an outdoor. So I think they're probably planning for an indoor size, and then if it gets enough tickets, they would shift to outdoors. That's kind of what I've heard.
I'll tell you what. So you've been to Stage AE, right?
I've never been,
outdoor.
but Kemba Live in Columbus is the exact same setup. It's the same owner, the venue owner, and everything. So I know what it looks like.
It is literally one of my favorite outdoor venues, if not my favorite outdoor venue in Pittsburgh. I mean, it is so much better than Star Lake Amphitheater or KeyBank Pavilion or whatever it's called today, because it's smaller to the point where you can, like, it's similar to Forecourt, venue without all the dust that we had last year, but you can get up front with no problem. The acoustics are great. Oh, it's so good. I saw so many shows there. A lot of Weezer, definitely. But I actually saw Andrew McMahon there one year, and it was really good. It was really good. So I think you'll really enjoy it. Either way, indoor, outdoor, it's a great venue.
Yeah, I saw Jack's Mannequin. Actually, the last time I saw Jack's Mannequin in Columbus was 2016. And that was the last time they did a full tour, and they were doing the 20 years of everything in 10 years at that point of everything in transit. And it was at what's now called Kemba Live, and it was the indoor version. And it's actually really good sound in there. Like I said, I think it's set up exactly the same as Stage AE. But then when they toured as the Wilderness with Dashboard Confessional as the co-headliner just a few years back, that was the outdoor, and that was excellent. It's, just like how you described Stage AE. The outdoor venue at Kemba is great. I love it. I mean, you can be anywhere on the lawn and see perfectly. You don't feel like you're probably like KeyBank, because I've been to venues like that too. You feel like you are way out there, where you can't see anything. But that's not how Kemba and probably Stage AE are. Anything else about shows or touring or anything like that?
The last time I saw Andrew, he was riding around on an inflatable duck, so he'll have to live up to something like that on this tour. And I know that he thinks about the crowd interaction a lot, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I hope you get your wish there. I don't know if he does that in the Jack's Mannequin shows. I know he does it. I know it's a Wilderness thing, but who knows? It might carry over. You guys said something else that I wanted to come back to. Just a side note. Andrew McMahon was at the Tornado Fest Forecourt 2 years ago, as I call it sometimes. And then Something Corporate played there last year. Fortunately, got to play. I got to say, I was a little, even though I'm excited to go to Pittsburgh to see Jack's Mannequin, I was a little disappointed to get that announcement. It seemed like the trifecta had to be completed. It should have been Jack's Mannequin at Forecourt this year. I was slightly disappointed, to be honest.
Well, Forecourt, I believe, it's not always in the beginning of the summer. So if it were later, could they potentially come back for that?
I guess they could. I just don't see them going to the same city
September?
twice. Yeah, because it used to be September every year for years. And then they shifted to August that one year, and we had the tornado. Then for some reason last year it was in June. I don't understand all the changes, but I actually really I don't know what you thought, Chris, but I really like that September date. That was like perfect weather.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they moved away from
Yeah.
that. I thought that was just
Yeah, I
perfect.
assume it had something to do with the
So
venue or what they, when they could secure a venue
probably.
or something crazy like that. But things that I don't understand. But I am eagerly anticipating a four-court announcement. I'm really surprised it hasn't happened yet. I looked at when I bought my tickets 2 years ago, and it was March, but like March 22nd, so almost a year to the day of this, 2 years to the day of this recording. Last year, I bought them in February, so I know they had, but again, it was in June, so it was a little earlier. So I know I bought the tickets last year in February, so I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping for an announcement soon, but
Yeah, we haven't heard a peep,
no,
right?
nothing. Yeah,
Like nothing about it. So one more question about live shows before we move on to anything
sure.
else. And you guys have been to a lot more of these concerts than I have to see them in any one of Andrew's three different bands. Do you feel like he put on a different show? Is he a different type of performer depending on what band it is, or is he basically the same guy, just different music?
I'm going to let Steve go first.
I don't think he's like a Mike Landlot. I think he's the same guy, but I don't have as much like recent experience to really answer that question. I haven't seen him as Jack's Mannequin. I've seen him as The Wilderness, and I've watched a couple of things on YouTube concerts, and I saw him back in the day as something corporate, but he was a young punk who was lighting his piano on fire and going crazy. I don't think that he has different personas based on the band, but I would actually, I think I'd have to acquiesce to Steve.
Well, you're right. I would say the same thing, Steve. I've seen all three iterations, and in fact, was so fortunate in November to see all three iterations over 3 nights.
On the boat, right?
Yeah, he doesn't change his kind of persona or stage presence or just the way he kind of runs things. It's Andrew playing the piano, on the piano, jumping off the piano, running around the crowd, riding an inflatable duck across the crowd. Maybe he changes the little details up. Obviously the stage show is going to be different or whatever, but like, no, the way he performs is the same across the board.
That would be funny if he had three different personas, like three different accents, three different hairdos.
Something corporate has the down hair in
Yeah.
front. Jack's Mannequin is the spiky hair with the blonde, highlights. I don't
Missed
know.
opportunity. He could have grown his hair out and done like the emo swoop over his eye.
Should
Yeah.
have.
He used to have that back in the day.
Yeah, he did. He did
That's
for-
SoCo days.
Yep, he did. Yeah, he doesn't have as much hair on it, like all of us, right? He doesn't have as much hair on his head anymore to do something like that. All right, let's talk a bit about. That was a good question, though, Chris. Thanks for that. Let's talk a bit about songwriting. So, not surprisingly, this song was written about an actual mixtape that Andrew made for his girlfriend at the time. Not dissimilar to what Steve said earlier. That girlfriend is now his wife. Steve, you referenced this earlier. So if he had a beef with the person he made this mix for, that would be a problem because that's his current wife of what like 18 years, 17 years. So let's talk about mixtapes a little bit more. Let's dive into that. So it sounds like you guys have both made mixtapes. Tell me about like a mixtape that you've made for somebody. Maybe you want to tell me about the one you made for your significant other, or maybe a different one. Maybe an example of what was on there. I'm really curious.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think that probably the most memorable ones are the older ones. Like when I was in college, early in college, I had a couple of like long distance relationships with like a girl from back home or something like that. And I do specifically remember making mix CDs that were songs about missing a person, like love songs about missing a person. I remember there was a Phoenix TX song. It wasn't Threesome. That would be pretty bad. No, there was a Phoenix TX song that was about that, and I can't remember exactly what else was on there, but it was themed really well towards that. So that's probably one of the most memorable. And then, I made a lot of like beer pong mixes, like mixes to put on in a house when you're like partying. That's not like
Okay,
to
like a
give
party mix.
someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of those party mix, and those were like pop punk because not everybody is like down to take a pop punk mix and listen to it, but it actually lends itself really well to just drinking and having fun and playing beer pong. So I would say those are some of the ones. I made a lot of power hour mixes. I don't know if you guys did power hours back in the day.
No, but I think I know what you're talking about. Where you drink so much in an hour.
When you do a power hour, by definition, is you take a shot of beer every minute for an hour. So
Jeez.
it's equivalent to about 5 beers. So it's I mean it's a good amount, but it's
Yeah,
not,
it's a good amount.
it's not a handle of Jack Daniels or anything. The carbonation is actually the most difficult part to deal with. But so the first time I ever did one, we just like looked at the clock, and when the clock changed the minute, we would take the shot. And then when people got, better at making mixes and editing and stuff like that, you would make a CD that had 60 songs, but only 60 seconds of it. And then I took it a little further, and we did like a move. We had a movie one where it was a video one. So it was 60 seconds of movies. I've made a lot of mix CDs back in the day, but not so many anymore. Those are some of the more memorable ones.
Do you remember any songs that you put on the one for your wife? You said the Phoenix TX song.
That was for like a long distance relationship back
Do
in
you
like
remember one you put
college.
on your wife's now wife's mix in 2010?
I remember I was trying to come up with like an eclectic mix of things that I listen to, but also knowing that she listens to more like indie stuff. I think I put like the Matches on there and
Hmm.
Cobra Starship and stuff like that. Probably like some Fallout Boy. I probably avoided some of the more high pitched pop punk, like your Newfound
Yeah.
Glories, if you will, and tried to get a little bit more creative. But I don't remember exactly what it was. I'm sure that CD is still somewhere, but scratched to all hell because it was in the side of a car somewhere for 5 years.
It better still be in her CD player on regular rotation, right?
Nobody's got a CD player. Come
Yeah,
on now.
that's true. How about you, Chris?
I do. I do. I'm trying to think. So tape wise, we're going back to like 97 maybe. Like it's high school. It's 96, 97. And I only really remember a mixtape that was given to me. I remember getting the mixtape and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what she put on
Hmm.
here. But it was like the first song was like Strong Enough by Sheryl Crow. No, it was Interstate Love Song was the first one on that CD on that tape, and then it was Strong Enough, and then it was just like a bunch of other stuff that I can't remember. It was all love songs. It was like All for One. I'm like, why did you make this? There might have been a Green Day on that because she knew that I like Green
Hmm.
Day. It was fine, right? There was some Boys to Men for sure on that. I mean, we're talking late '90s. So, like, that's a memorable one. I didn't make people a lot of mixtapes though, like in that era. Like that, I did not. I was not the person. I received the mixtapes. I didn't make them. But when CDs became a thing, that's when I went just bananas with making these mix
Yeah.
CDs. I'd make it for myself. I would make them for parties. I would be the person putting these together. Sometimes they were a hit, sometimes they were not, because once again, I would mix yacht rock with, Notorious B.I.G., with Britney Spears, with NSYNC, go back to Bon Jovi, and then a little bit of Neil Diamond. And, I think that, that either got the party going or it halted it to a stop, but I thought that was fun. I thought it was fun to do those things. And I also had I had another mix, but it wasn't anything I burned. It was like, when you have that special lady over and you have a mix going, you have to have that particular mix. And it was all slower songs. So there you go, Steve. I did one theme in my life. One theme.
I guess I have done themes, but they're more for like my mixes. So Chris, you talked about making mixes for yourself. Yeah, I've done a whole lot of that, and you unlocked some memories for me on mixes I have currently sitting in my basement now. I need to go check them out at some point and see what's actually on there. Probably the most a cringe-worthy moment for me, I gotta say, looking back now, is I made in my senior year of college. And so when I start saying names, you'll probably start to remember like what albums were coming out at the time. I decided to, for like 10 of my friends in college, and it wasn't random. It was, some of my closest friends at the time. I was like, I'm going to make a mix CD, but unique to each of these individual people. And I came across the track list. So I'd written them all out, and, I was trying to strategize. So it's funny, Steve, you said, well, you got to put like 13, 14 songs. You don't want to go too many. No, I'd max out the CD. I'd be like, how many can I pack in? And if I'm getting too much time, like too if I get toward the end and I'm like, well, I've got 17 songs. Oh, I can fit an 18th. Or if I use a shorter song on 17, I could then get an 18th. I would just pack them, which is kind of an odd thing to do. But I found these track lists anyway. I still have them handwritten from 2001. What good are they? I have no idea. And I decided to, because I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff, I decided to plug all those songs that I could find into Spotify. And there's like 10 of them or so that aren't on Spotify, by the way, maybe more. And I just put them all in the same mix, so like 70, 80, 90 songs. And I'm going to link it in the show notes because it's kind of a ridiculous set of songs. But everyone was unique. Some of them, there was some overlap. But Chris, you might get a kick out of this. Again, it's very cringy. Do you know what Weezer album came out in 2001?
In 2001, it was Green was 2000.
No, you got it.
It was 2001.
Green,
Okay,
yeah, Green. So spring of 2001 was Green, right? So every mix was named after a Weezer lyric. So they would get the CD and it would have like a Green album Weezer lyric as the title. And then I gave them the track list, so they knew it was on there. And
that's great. What are you talking about, cringy? That's amazing.
Take it a step further with my Weezer obsession at the time and to current day. Because it was Christmas time, everybody got Christmas Song by Weezer. It's awful. That's not even one of their best songs, not even close. But the rest of the songs were not Weezer, to be fair. I didn't put any Green Album tracks on most of them, maybe a couple of them. But I was looking through these tracks, and I was surprised that I knew some of these songs back then. So the ones I'm going to list here are more relevant to you guys and what you talk about on your show. Responsibility by MXPX was on there. I had a Bouncing Soul song. I had several Blink-182 songs because Take Off Your Pants and Jacket had come out that year. So songs like Shut Up and Story of a Lonely Guy. I do see Island in the Sun on here. Not surprising, by Weezer. Saves the Day, a song called See You, which wouldn't have been to this date been able to identify that song, but I listened to it and I was like, yeah, that was a pretty good song. I should listen to it more. Dressed to Kill by Newfound Glory, which I honestly didn't think, looking back, I didn't think I knew who Newfound Glory was until their 2002 release, like when the rest of the world found out about them. But apparently I was listening to a little bit of Newfound Glory at the time.
That's a good song.
It is a good song, and it's one of the.
I think that's my favorite song off that album.
Is it? That's another one that I probably downloaded on Napster or whatever. I probably was downloading everything Newfound Glory, and that was one that popped out at me. Same goes for this next one, Blister by Jimmy Eat World, which is a great song, and I still listen to that one to this day. That's off of Clarity, which again, I didn't realize I was listening to I was really into Jimmy Eat World's big album, Bleed American, at the time. I didn't realize I was kind of going back and listening to those older albums, but apparently I was. And then a couple of Sum 41 songs. Dave's Possessed Hair, What We're All About. That's what it was called on the album.
Does that all kill? That's the Half Hour Power?
Yeah, that's off of Half Hour Power, yep, with the fire and the guy on the front. Oh, Simple Pages by Weezer.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. That's
Wait a second. You said these are handwritten somewhere, but you're looking at a computer right now.
No, so what I did was I searched them all on Spotify a few weeks ago.
Oh, so you're looking at your playlist.
Yeah, I'm looking at my playlist now to find them. Yeah, I did have them handwritten though. And I still.
That would have been another level if you decided to scan in all of your handwritten track lists.
What do you think? I'm a nerd or something? No, I am a nerd.
He's like, hang on, I just got to open this other folder.
Hold on, yeah. So
listen, I have every concert I've ever been to in an Excel spreadsheet. So
yeah,
I'm
kudos
I'm a
to
little
you
nerdy
for that.
myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it should be. You should keep track. I see Roller Coaster by Blink-182. We got some Real Big Fish on here, some Save Ferris, some Rancid. Just a bunch of random stuff I was listening to at the time that probably these people didn't, and this is why I cringe, these people probably didn't care about this music. They were into like pop music. Most of my friends were into like pop music and stuff and rap. And actually one of my friends just referenced an old like rap song from that era today. And I was like, wow, my friends at that time and I were into very different music. They probably got these mixes and they were like, what is this guy, what saves the day? Why is this guy trying to sell us on this stuff? But anyway, going back to my original point with the mixtape is, I was trying to find things that, I think you should check this out.
Again, now it's all playlists.
You can't really
make your playlists, and some playlists like catch fire and people love them.
Yeah.
But it's just like making your playlist, accessible.
Yeah.
To the masses. Some people know how to do that.
But that's what I like about that Music League game. It came up on your Discord channel at a point. Basically, you submit one song to a group of people, and I have to listen to that song. So I approach that the same way as I approach mixtapes. It's like, here's the song I want you to hear right now that fits the theme. Sometimes it hits, and sometimes it does the opposite. So I'm going to go back to the subject of Andrew's mixtape for just a moment here. So Andrew made Kelly, his now wife, a mixtape back then, and that's where the inspiration for this song came from. And Chris, you'll be glad to know, I know I've made a lot of Weezer references today. I apologize to the listeners, but you'll be proud to know that one of the songs on this mix, the only one I'm going to tell you, is it was Suzanne by Weezer he included on there. So Andrew is a Weezer fan as well.
Great song. Great song.
Now, that should have been on my mix back then, not Christmas song, but I don't know what I was thinking. Let's talk about the sound of the song mixtape a little bit. I'm going to call this an amateur album review. I'm sure you guys have found them all over the internet. You know, you get someone that just basically wrote in their blog about what they found, what they liked about the album. So this is from an amateur album review of Everything in Transit. I'll link it in the show notes. He says, the mixtape features one of the best guitar riffs of the album, allowing Bobby Anderson the freedom to live it up a little, especially with the opening and central guitar riff that screams California pop punk. Meanwhile, Tommy Lee's contribution, an upbeat and engaging drum beat, is more compelling than anything Motley Crue ever put on display. I thought that part was funny. But McMahon steals the show, as he often does on Everything in Transit, with upbeat and stirringly emotive piano and his mostly restrained vocals that give way to pure sincerity. I feel like he's very complimentary of Andrew McMahon, and Bobby for that matter, but probably not giving Motley Crue the due they deserve, right? They had a pretty good career. To say that this is better than anything they've ever done, I don't know. Maybe it is, but
I don't really find Andrew's vocals refrained.
No, restrained. Yeah,
Restrained.
I don't either. I don't know where he's going with that. Pure sincerity, check. Restrained, not so much. So upbeat and stirringly emotive piano, check. But yeah, I thought some of that stuff, I find some of these random things, and I think, you know, I get a kick out of them sometimes. So well written. I mean, I'll give him that. But
yeah.
Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
I'll just say, like, I mean, this is a fantastic song. Mm-hmm. Again, this entire album is fantastic. But what really hits me is the explosions. There are multiple explosions on every verse, right? Just the way that the song is constructed. You mentioned, or the review mentioned, that the intro guitar riff, mm-hmm. right? It comes in, it's very pleasing to the ears. His vocals come in, you know, this is morning when I spend the most time, and then it just smashes in, thinking about what I'm giving up, and then it's these starts and stops, these ups and downs, and every verse has this explosion to it, but then it's got this beautifully melodic chorus with amazing harmonies. I listened, I thought I might have even heard some strings in there, but when you mentioned the notes and the credits, nobody said anything about strings. Maybe I was just thinking.
Yeah, there's some programming in there. I mean, maybe it could be anything at that point.
It could be, but I mean, just the way that the song is constructed with those explosions built in, it just makes it so great. And then, listen, everybody is a sucker for a little bit of a slow down, a nice chilled out bridge. I can't get to you. I can't get to you. And it slows down and it builds. And I think when we were on your show last, we talked about Constantine, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That was one of my favorite things about Constantine is the ups and the downs and the overall sentiment of a song that has a pulse and a lifeline, and it just builds to this culmination. This is a little bit different because it's not building the whole way through. It's building a little bit and then exploding in your face and then chilling out and exploding again. And I think that's what makes it so great. So I don't know if that was where we were going with the question.
It is exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. You described it way better than I could have. Yeah. I love the way you put it. The explosions, it kind of pulls you back and then explodes in your face again. I really like that terminology you used. The chorus hits pretty hard, even though the verse is kind of hitting you in the face at times. I do like that. You know, you brought it up at the beginning of the episode, Steve. I like that kind of slow down toward the end there too. It kind of brings it back to, you know, piano territory. Whereas the majority of the song, as you've pointed out, the piano is not really front and center on this track, which is I think why it comes off as more of a pop punk track more so than a lot of the album
But
actually.
it's beautifully mixed in the background.
Yeah.
Just these little notes
Hmm.
in the background of the chorus. Like it's there,
It definitely
but
is
it's
there.
not the forefront until certain parts later on.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Chris? How does it make you feel when this song begins? You hear those kind of initial notes.
It sounds like an Andrew McMahon song. It has that feel to it, and you get into this song, and it was hard for me to really put into words like how I felt with this. I'll tell you what though, like thinking about the song itself, beside the music, just the subject matter. We talked about this a little bit already, but because we mostly grew up in the era of this, that we lived the mixtape, that we understand the reasons behind it, and we actually did record an actual cassette mixtape, outside of just a disc. Even though I did it, not as often as some others, I just received them. Everything that Steve said about the music, I agree with. I think that there's a ton of great stuff to call out with how he mixes all of those different instruments. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up too is, and I thought you had initially asked us about our thoughts or responses to the album review. So that's kind of where I was going to go.
Yeah, please.
They talk about how McMahon steals the show on this track. Doesn't he normally steal the show? Like I feel like he
Yeah, that's kind
on
of a
most of his
silly
songs,
comment.
Kind of his thing.
he is the center of the
Yeah.
song, and that's not to his discredit. Like people listen to his music to listen to
Hmm.
him, and he has an amazing band behind him to make that come alive. But without Andrew McMahon's voice, without the way that he emotes, without the way that he sings, without those ups and downs that come from his voice inflection and the way that he sings lyrically, you wouldn't have the same impact. And I think this song does that too. So it brings back nostalgia. It sounds good. It has a ton of great, layering of all different types of sounds. Yeah, I went way beyond the beginning, on this one, Steve, but that's kind of where I'm at with this track.
And not only that, but you have to take into account where it is in the album, right? The album starts off with "Holiday from Real,"
Hmm.
which is this like fun, floaty. He's throwing in like silly terms about buying weed from the lesbians in Venice, and then like that one is got this upbeat, floaty like vibe to it, and then this one, just that guitar. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Like,
Smacks you.
yeah, it smacks you. And then afterwards, you go into Bruised, which is like, one of those beautiful building kind of ballads. So the song stands out by itself here, like smack in the middle of those two very different type of songs.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I've always felt this way, but after seeing it live several times, it seems to be the moment. Again, I've referenced this is he jumps off the piano usually during this song. It tends to be toward the beginning of the set. I hope that's not like a spoiler for people who are going to see this show this summer. That just seems to be from my memory. I didn't look that up because it seems to be like the kickoff of the energetic part of the show, whether he's with the Wilderness or Jack's Mannequin. So I always, whenever I hear this song on my own, when I'm streaming it, I've got it in my headphones or just playing around the house or in my car. I always like get this feeling like let's go, like as soon as those first notes hit. And I don't know if that comes from seeing it in concert or if that's the way I've always felt about it, but that's definitely the way I feel now. Like let's go. This is the beginning. This is the energy. This is where we're going with it. So
It's go time.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I feel
Yeah.
I haven't seen this one done live. And I
Mhm.
mean, the moment that guitar kicks in just kind of gives you the feels. Like like you're about to like rock out.
Yeah.
And the drums, the guitar, everything about this song, like this is the way that it kicks off, like you could like headbang to it.
Mhm.
It's got so many different elements to it.
It's true. Yeah, that guitar is pretty damn heavy in the intro throughout the verse. So I would argue it's heavier in the verse than in the actual chorus. That
Oh
guitar.
yeah, the chorus is very easy breezy.
Yeah, agreed. You guys want to talk lyrics? Are you guys ready to move on to lyrics?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. To me, these lyrics are iconic. I mean, I probably say that. I've probably said that a few times before, but they really are. Like, I think about some of these lyrics. Like, Steve, you already referenced the opening, but I had the same notes. This is morning. It's when I spend the most time thinking about what I've given up. So as soon as that hits. It's like, again, let's go. But I love the sentiment of that line too, thinking about what I've given up. We all have bad days. That line has played in my head so often throughout my life. It's like, I wouldn't say this song's on my life soundtrack, but maybe that opening is on my life soundtrack in a way, if that makes sense. Because it just reminds me of being, maybe drinking coffee, maybe driving to work, and I'm deep in my thoughts, and I'm like, just having deep thoughts, good or bad. But that whole like thinking about what I've given up kind of gives a weight to the lyric, in my opinion. It kind of sits with me, and it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the song.
I think one of the things that stick out to me, and I want to get your opinion
Mm-hmm.
on, like he continues to ask over and over again, "Where are you now?" throughout the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, and is it because of what he's lost? Like I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. He broke up with his then girlfriend Kelly, who would later become his wife, and so this what one thing that's really special about this album is the dynamic of the writing on this album between breakup songs and just like partying and not giving, whatever about anything, because he's out hanging with friends. He's given up the girlfriend to kind of be free, but he's also but these lyrics like this show that but he's regret it. So I'm sure we all have times in our life that we've made a major life decision and then kind of rethought it and been like, should I have done that, handled that way? Is this the right direction? Am I going the right way? But it seems like that's where he was at. You hear it in a lot of other songs on this album, like Rescued and Bruised was mentioned earlier. Not so much like the carefree spirit of Holiday from Real, but more in those other tracks, Rescued, Dark Blue, Bruised, where you're getting that, sense of regret or just wondering if he's made the right life choices moving forward. That's what I get from this line, and that's what I think he's. So going back to your question, Chris, where are you now? I gotta believe is talking about thinking about where's that girl that I let go, what's she doing right now, and should I be with her maybe?
One more thing, and then I'll hand it off to you, Steve. But if you look at this song and maybe look at it from just a literal standpoint, you you could almost get the feeling that he's the level of confidence that this individual has in his ability to make a mixtape is pretty high. Like this guy's almost full of himself when it comes to the things he says about, I'm writing you a symphony of sound. This mix could burn a hole in anyone. And there was one other lyric here about, I swear to God, this mix could sink the
Yeah,
sun.
I had that one
It's
noted too.
like, bro, like, okay, like we get it. Like you make a good mixtape. So like, is that just him continuing to just tell himself that he's making this mixtape that's the best thing ever, that's going to just it'll blow anybody away. Like this is going to be awesome, and I know it's going to have an effect on the person in the song that I'm singing to or about.
I gotta admit I've never come at it from that perspective, but that's not only funny, but it's yeah, it's an interesting point you make. He does think a lot of this mix, doesn't he?
Certainly does. You gotta look from the eyes of the other guy, just like Johnny Lawrence. You gotta look through his eyes.
The hero of the Karate Kid.
He was the
Yeah.
hero, and we don't realize that.
Yeah, I learned that in Cobra Kai. I didn't realize that back then, but
Steve knows that.
Chris has known it all along.
what do you think, Steve? What thoughts do you have on any lyrics?
It's hard for me to dissect the lyrics because it's funny. I think of this more as the mixtape is like the general idea, but as Chris is dissecting the lyrics, like the mixtape is very much like front and center. I think of this more of like as a song towards the girl, and the mixtape is just kind of like a conduit or a vehicle. And I don't know, it's this is a song where I kind of just sing along to it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Don't think
don't
about what it means or
often.
anything.
No, I mean I definitely get the gist of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't get too focused on the lyrics. But and I always thought back in the day, I always thought it was I swear to God this bitch could sink the sun. I thought that was the lyric before I looked at the actual
Oh,
lyrics.
that would change the whole meaning of it. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean You could refer to that as your mixtape, but that would just
Oh, I
amplify it,
see.
I
Okay.
guess.
Oh, yeah. I guess you could
No,
refer
not
to it. Yeah.
not as in the person,
Yeah.
as in the mixtape.
Ah, I gotcha. Yeah.
I thought
Okay.
that was just like a word that he threw in there to overemphasize
Over.
what he was
Yeah.
trying to say. Yeah, I feel like it's just a song that's dedicated to a girl, and the mixtape is the vehicle.
Yeah. No. No. I do agree with you. I don't think the mixtape is as front and center as the title makes it out to be. I mean, you need a good title, and it works really well here. But I agree. It's a love story, in my opinion. A guy who's missing the girl that he's let go of, and
I wish there was like
living
a
a little bit of
spoken word
regret.
section, like in I'm
And
Ready.
I'm ready.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's oh god. That's another great song on this album. Yeah.
Yeah, it really
Are,
is.
are you saying we need more information?
I love that that spoken word weird thing that he does in that song is just maybe it's because it's only on that song
Hmm.
is because why I feel like it's so unique and awesome. But like I'm like yeah, I want more of that. Maybe that would have worked if he stuck it in here too.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm going to go back to what you said a moment ago, and that's yeah, maybe it works so well because it's the only time he did that in that on that album. Like I don't know if it works every time. He does a little bit of that on Zombies on Broadway, Brooklyn, You're Killing Me. It's all spoken word verses. Very different song, but it doesn't always work as well as it did on I'm Ready. I'll just put it that way.
So why did she break into his house though?
Wait, no, he broke. Oh, when you
I read your letter,
the one
the
you left
one
when
you left when you broke into my house. So she broke into his house to leave him a letter?
yeah, retracing every step you made. You know what? I've never put too much thought into that lyric right there.
Like if you're gonna leave somebody a letter, like just slide it under the front door.
Right.
Like don't break into the house.
And you guys know how it is when you're dating somebody and it gets serious and maybe you give them a key to your place. It's much more impactful if you say when you broke into my house rather than you let yourself into my house. Yeah, maybe she stopped by when he wasn't there and just like left a letter on the counter or something.
Yeah.
Maybe she disliked the mixtape so much that she wrote the breakup letter and
Well, I
she
think the
broke into his
mixtape is after the
house.
breakup letter.
Easy. I think that she wrote the letter saying, "Look, you're a nice guy and all, but this mixtape was not what you said it was going to be. So we cannot be together anymore.
So
I'm
she
sorry. Here's
smashed the window and unlocked the
Well,
door from the inside.
how do you get into apartments you don't have a key to? How do you do it then?
I would just put my note under the door
All right.
or in a
What
mail
if somebody could
slot.
somebody could pick that up? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You have to get in somehow, Steve. Let's think real here.
I learned recently
You know what
that
I mean?
that credit card trick is not as easy as it looks in the movies and TV. It does not work. We had to try to break into our
It,
own house, so we locked ourselves out. It did not work. I had to call a locksmith. It was embarrassing.
I got that to work one time on my house, and I was really happy about that. But then I wonder, it's like, can somebody else do that to get into my house now?
Yes, the answer is yes.
So I changed the
It's
locks.
a good
But
idea.
yeah, that's my theory on this. That's the way I think it all plays out. And it makes sense now. It does.
Last thing on the lyrics, I will say that they're very clever in the way that
Mhm.
he does. I mentioned that I'm not reading too much into the mixtape thing, but when
Mhm.
the way that he describes like creating the mixtape, I'm swimming through the stereo. Like that makes me think of when I was in high school and I had a blank cassette in a boombox and I was hitting record when the radio played the song I wanted to record. I'm swimming through the stereo. I'm writing you a symphony of sound. Like this mixtape that he's creating is the symphony, and that goes to Chris saying that he's very cocky in the fact that his mixtape is
Could
fantastic.
sink
But
the sun.
he keeps rearranging the songs again, and then the mix could burn a hole in anyone. Yeah, again, I hadn't really dissected the lyrics too much, but they're very good. They're very good.
One thought I had when I was looking, and this is probably after meeting other fellow Andrew fans, and I don't know if you guys see this a lot in the artists that the other artists that you love for that matter, but it seems like lyric tattoos with Andrew McMahon lyrics are really big in the fan base, or maybe that's just in my algorithm. I just see a lot of them, and I don't have any tattoos myself. I don't have any intent to ever get a tattoo myself. It's just not really for me. But I understand why people do it. But I look at these lyrics, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'll say, if ever I was to get an Andrew McMahon lyric tattooed on me, I think a mixtape with one of these lines on it would be a good choice. And I know I've seen that. That's not a unique idea. I've seen those tattoos before on other people. I think it's awesome. Lines like, I'm just going to rattle some off. Symphony of sound. I swear to God, this mix could sink the sun. This mix could burn a hole in anyone. It was you I was thinking of. And the final lines of the song, probably my favorite. It's like I wrote every note with my own fingers. I just think that would make for good tattoos. And since I don't do tattoos, probably I'll just have my wife cricket some of those lyrics on a shirt or something. Which
How about I'm cutting through you track by track? By the way, what does that mean? I'm cutting through you. Does that mean he is trying to get to her heart and get her to feel something? Or is that like a negative thing? I'm cutting through you. Because it sounds kind of like a negative line.
No, I think my opinion is it's the latter. I'm cutting through you track by track. Like I want to get through to you and cut to your heart, right to your heart. I want to get right to your heart with it. I can't remember. So that's one of my my infamous or not so infamous misheard lyrics. I don't remember what I used to think he said there, but it wasn't that. But I do think cutting through you track by track is like I want to get to your heart with this one. I'm going to give you these songs. I mean, isn't that why we make mixes for people? We want to hit them in the heart and like...
You want to cut through them.
Yeah, because
it's just an interesting way to say that.
You just want to cut through them. Yeah, that's why.
I just want to confuse people. That's what I want to do.
You want to cut through them in a different way. You want to give them thinkers, I think, Chris. You know.
I like that. Yes, I
like,
think
what
so.
is happening here? Why is it going this way? Whereas, yeah, I approach mixtapes a little differently, as we talked about. But yeah, I love these lyrics. The verses, the chorus, it's all good. There's another line that I don't think we've mentioned yet that I just want to throw out. There's a piece of me in every single second of every single day. I assume, if we're going with all of the mixtape references, I don't know if that he's referring to the music as in like when you hear these songs, I want you to think of me. I think I'm only thinking that because of all we've said so far, because I've never really thought about that line that way. But I don't know, just a thought.
And it almost also seems like it's like, okay, man, like it's not all about you all the time. Like, you serious here? Like, because he's like, yeah, you're going to think about me all the time. This music is going to make you think about me every single second of every single day.
Yeah.
You watch.
Again, isn't that why we make mixtapes? So that it gets to their heart and they enjoy it and they think of the person who made it for them. And then they're like, oh, and they think fondly of that person. Or is that just me? Maybe that's just me.
That's the intention. And then they just keep
you're
skipping
not
the
wrong.
songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. They're not.
And it's a heartbreaker.
You think that's the case, but no, it's not.
Yeah. What about you guys? Do you guys have like a favorite lyric of the ones we've mentioned or like a favorite part of this song?
Well, I'm writing you a symphony of sound. I think that's a great lyric because that's the way that I feel. When I'm putting together a playlist, that's what I want to believe that I'm doing. I'm putting together a symphony of sound for the people that are going to be listening to it. I want people to enjoy the music I put on. I want to elicit a response when I put music on in any circumstance, social or other. Mostly it's social. I don't know. Privately, it would be just me, and I'd want to elicit a response in myself too. But I really think that's a really good lyric there. So that would be mine.
Okay. How about you, Steve?
As much as I have spoken the praises of the exploding verses, I think my favorite part of the song is the very end, the final three lines when it slows down to no music. Do do do. It's like I wrote do 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 every note with my own fingers, and you just hear him a cappella with the piano, and it takes a explosive rock song and cuts it down to the core and like forces you to feel the things that he wanted you to feel all along. I think that's probably my favorite part of the song.
Those are great lines, and something I appreciate about those lines specifically, I don't write music. I don't know how to make music. I can sing karaoke a little bit, but that's as far as I can take it. And so when I play a song for somebody, introduce a song to somebody, or give them a mixtape if I had that opportunity, that's how I am feeling. Yeah, it's like it's like it came from me, and that's why it's special. So yeah, I agree that line's very special. My favorite parts are actually the beginning and end of the song. The first lines with that first, those first guitar chords, and then the ending with the piano, which are pretty different from each other. But I like that dynamic between the beginning and the end. It's like it starts off like kind of almost angry, at himself maybe, I don't know, and then it ends on a note. It's like very reflective, retrospective, and thinking about what he missed, what he misses, and the emotions behind it. So, did you see the music video?
Yeah, I watched all of them.
Okay, let's talk about music videos then.
Whatever that animated one was is, there's nothing to really say about that one.
Yeah.
The official music video is fine. It's just it's funny to see what Andrew McMahon looks like in different times of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that he had that kind of buzz cut with the beard and the buzzed in beard and mustache at this point in time. But the video itself, it shows the girl, and she, it's very reminiscent of like Not Another Teen Movie when Janie is like throwing the paint against the wall, and then it ends up being, like a little stick figure. She's just like trashing her thing, and
she's throwing it on the windows too. By the way, I just need to point that out.
The first actually couple, I'm watching the video and I'm like, she's dumping all this paint and it's not hitting the windows at all. That's some clever editing. And then eventually some paint gets on the windows.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta rewatch it one more time. But essentially, you're seeing her kind of go through her thing while he's, playing his song at the club, and then eventually, she makes her way over there. That's kind of a classic boy girl early 2000s video. Nothing too crazy. Would have been cool to see maybe the band rocking out a little bit more. Were they in it at all?
They are. They're playing a show at the club, and that's where she ends up at the end.
I feel like I just remember him at the piano.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It doesn't show much of the other band members, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I feel like I just see him at the piano. And I love the thing that he does like live where he's got like 75 microphones. Like no matter where he is, he just like throws his arm up and like grabs a different microphone, and like he'll rotate his body like 14 degrees, and like he's on a different mic, and then he's this way, and then he's on the piano. Like that's always fun. But that's what I remember from the video. I don't remember the band all that much.
Yeah, they're just kind of in the background. You're right. They don't feature them as individuals.
But it was kind of a, like a classic, nothing too crazy out of the box. This wasn't one of those videos where they threw $50,000 at him and told him to go crazy. It's probably mid-low budget type of thing.
I think so.
I don't remember seeing the video. Like I probably listened to the song on like MySpace and Napster and bought the CD, but I don't remember really paying attention to the video back in the day.
Well, listeners have heard me say this before, but I wasn't really watching music videos at the time. And so when I started this podcast, it was kind of a conscious decision, but then it happened with one of the first songs I covered that had a video. Might have been Dark Blue or something. And I realized I've never seen any of these music videos before. So I decided to wait until we were about to record to watch this. And so I only watched this music video a couple weeks ago for the first time. I never saw it back then either. I never saw any of these videos at the time.
I don't know that I saw it before.
Yeah. Couple of things. So I think that the theme of the video, if I'm not mistaken, is a tape gets dropped off, or a tape gets dropped off at her house. She gets it, and then somehow, either through the note or through the music, she realizes that he's playing a show that night. Basically, he's inviting her to the show, and so that's why she ends up at the club at the end. That's the theme I took away from it.
And what he wrote the words "Where are you now" on her wall, and that's why she's splattering it with paint to cover it up.
I don't know. Was that what's on the wall? So that
yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't realize that. Where are you now?
It said "Where are you now" on the wall.
Okay, maybe she was trying to cover up the memories of when they were together or something. I'm assuming maybe they lived together, and so she's painting the walls to kind of get rid of his memories. But then she decides to go to the club anyway. That was my my very basic interpretation of what happened there. I did find out, so the woman in the video, the main character, if you will, was an actress on One Tree Hill, and she was a big Jack's Mannequin fan. So she either volunteered or they asked her to be in the video or whatever. I'm sure she was paid for it. But I found out that, are you guys familiar with the actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Negan.
Yeah, Negan. Okay, so you know the Negan reference. I wasn't sure if you guys would know that, but that's in real life, that's his wife now. They're about 16 years apart in age.
Oh, so the actress in the video.
The actress in the video, who was
okay.
from Hillary Burton, who was from One Tree Hill, I learned, is now Jeffrey Dean Morgan's wife and is now Hillary Burton Morgan.
She lives on a farm with him in the middle of nowhere.
And yeah, and speaking of Negan, she actually played his wife in the flashback. So when it showed Negan's backstory about how he lost his wife on the Walking Dead TV show, if people don't know what we're talking about, that's The Walking Dead, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan was on that show. When it flashed back to his origin story, if you will, his wife Lucille was played by his real life wife, who was the same girl in the music video.
I wonder if I saw that. I
Interesting.
gave up on The Walking Dead
Yeah, that was good. That was a good choice.
shortly after Negan came in.
Yeah.
After Carl was on the roof eating pudding, I was like, I'm done with this show. This is terrible.
No, you dropped that too early. It was still really good after
Really?
that.
I watched it till the bitter end, and maybe I shouldn't have stuck around.
There was like full seasons where like nothing happened. Like every single episode was about these characters that you didn't even know, and they're just like walking on railroad tracks, and I'm like, do something.
That's dramatic
What?
television nowadays. That's how they do it. They stretch these things, entire seasons of just talking to get to the next season.
So we didn't talk much about it. The animated, you just kind of brushed over it, Steve. But I think actually I like the animated one a little bit better than the regular one.
Okay.
I like that style of animation. It's almost a little bit, in the vein of the Monty Python type of animation at the beginning, but you also get the feeling of the album cover. Like the album cover is in that video, like that style as well. It's just Andrew McMahon that you're seeing in not animated style. It's stylistically, it
I didn't
seems
even
like
think it
some
looked
sort
like
of
him.
it's some sort of filter. It almost seems like a throwback to like, Aha's like 80s type,
True.
where they skip every other frame animation type view. So, he's on top of all this stuff happening behind him, all this like twisting and turning and vines growing and flowers. But I think stylistically, it's really cool to watch, and I'm a big fan of like different and creative types of animation. So I kind of like that better. I mean, I think that the original video has its merits and it tells a story. Not going to take anything away from it, other than the fact that you're right, Steve. Like I've never seen him look like this before. Like it's off-putting. I like it.
In the real
I
one or the animated one?
in the real one, it's like not off-putting. It's unsettling because it doesn't look like him. It looks like another guy. It looks like somebody else with the beard and the shaved head. Have you seen him
Yeah.
have that look anywhere?
Well, in that era, yeah. So he had so
Did he?
so here's a quick story about them. This is not about the video specifically. This is about when they shot the One Tree Hill bit for this TV show, which I assume was right around the same time, but I'm not sure what the timeline was there. So Andrew was in chemotherapy for his cancer at the time and was invited to be on One Tree Hill, which was clearly a big deal because I think, again, he gained a lot of fans from it. So he decided to make a trip across the country from L.A. to Wilmington, North Carolina, where they were shooting this TV show. And his doctor told him, no, don't do it. This is stupid. This is putting your health at risk. But a couple of things. One, his wife was a huge One Tree Hill fan. And two, it was a great opportunity for his career to promote his music, to get on a TV show where a lot of people had eyes on it that would want to see that kind of music. So I think it was a great opportunity. So they journeyed across the country, shot that scene. I think the music video was a whole different thing, to be fair, but either in or recently out of chemotherapy, he did look very different. And that may be why he looked that way in the music video. I'm not sure though.
Oh, okay.
And then before that point, he had a bit. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him in something corporate, but for a while he had like big bushy hair that would kind of cover his eyes. He had the big thick glasses at times, and looked very different before all that. But then cancer took its toll, and chemotherapy, of course. And so then his hair was very different. It was a lot shorter, and there was a time I think when he kind of grew it into like a more of an emo swoop for a little bit in Jack's Mannequin. I might have the timeline wrong, but he did have shorter hair during that time, though. So that was a very long-winded answer on why he looked that way in the music video. But I'm going to, going back to One Tree Hill for just a second, I'm going to link those videos in the show notes. If anybody out there is interested in watching them, heck, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that it's like, well, I've seen the whole series twice, so I don't need to go back and watch them. But the use of the music in that TV show is very odd to me. I watched the Dark Blue spot a few years ago when I did that episode, and the mixtape, besides the time they're playing it in the club, the mixtape song the band isn't in this scene, of course, is used in a basketball scene. And the main character looks to be throwing the game because he's mad at his girlfriend. So he's just playing terribly. And I'm like, this doesn't fit. Like, well, what about the mixtape goes with this scene? So I just find it a very odd placement. But again, I'm sure it was good for his career, but it was just an odd thing. But I'll link that in the show notes. I just thought it was funny. Now, I want to be clear. I was a 90210 and a Melrose Place fan, so I make no judgments against people who are into One Tree Hill. It just never caught my eye, and I just never watched it. So I also shared one more thing. I shared another couple, I think a video or two of you guys of some different versions of this song. So like the Hurley Studios version was just Andrew on a piano. And I also shared a VH1 acoustic version, which had Bobby on an acoustic guitar and Andrew on piano. In general, because you guys do a pop punk podcast, do you like when pop punk songs are broken down acoustically? Do you enjoy that, as hearing it differently that way?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do too.
I do.
I always find it interesting.
I thought the piano-only version was like very different because you hear like what the guitar riff intro is on a piano, but it was super fun. And then on the one where Bobby's playing with him, the thing that stood out to me most was the harmonies. And everything is kind of all, and it seems like it's all Andrew on the recording, but when you watch that version, the harmonies that he's got are fantastic when they sing together.
Yeah, Bobby does a good job with that current in the live setting, current day too. They sound good together.
We'll see in June.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's still in the band. Anything else about those versions? I like you guys. It sounds like I like hearing the different versions of a song like that. Taking a song I love and creating it in a different way.
No, that's exactly what I would say too. You just took the words out of my mouth. It's a song that we know, it's a song that we love, but it's a different version of it that sounds great in its own way. Sign me up every day for that.
I don't think it worked as well on only the piano, so I'll echo what Steve said. With the guitar, I thought that was the better version for me personally, because it's a guitar song with some piano in it, not the other way around.
Kind of funny that he was on VH1 doing that song. Like you think of VH1 as like some like MTV's lamer cousin, but
yeah,
interesting that he was on there.
Yeah, I couldn't say because I didn't even know there was a VH1 after like the 1990s. So I wasn't paying attention. So I don't even know what they had on VH1 at that time. I don't know. Anything else? Any final thoughts? Anything we missed about the song?
So we're not going to do the rest of the songs on Everything in Transit right now?
Yeah. All right. Now let's go to track one. We're going to go through the whole thing.
I thought this was going to be like a 12-hour podcast.
Wrong show.
I do have a question for you guys if you guys all play along. So you guys always do Rankin It on your show. Can you tell me your top 3 songs on Everything in Transit? 3, 2, 1.
It's funny for me. Like my top 3 songs are definitely within the top 4 songs of. I'm sorry, the first 4 songs of the entire record. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm gonna leave out here. Would it be bad if I left out the mixtape, considering we're talking about it?
There's
right
no
now?
requirement here. I just want to know which songs are your favorites on Everything in Transit.
I think it would probably go number 3, Bruised, number 2, I'm Ready, number 1, Holiday from Real. But like the mixtape is like really close in there, so it's not far off.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
Do we have to go in order or just the 3?
Well, you guys always make your guests go in order, so I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, Chris is getting subject to his own rules. I love this.
Yeah.
Shackle him up.
All right. Listen, I got it. So it's not hard. It's Bruised number 3, it's Mixtape number 2, and it's Dark Blue number 1. That's where I'm going.
And because you guys shared yours, I am going to share mine, although I question this because it's like, how could I leave the other 8 or whatever songs off of here? It's like so hard. I mean, there's definitely songs that fall to toward the bottom as opposed to the top. This is really difficult, but I did come up with a 3 for now, and I would say I can't believe Holiday from Real's not on here on this list. Now I'm looking at it, but it's not. So I'm just gonna go 3, 2, 1. 3, I've got the mixtape actually, and 2 is Rescued, and 1 is I'm Ready. So Steve, you mentioned that a couple of times, and I do love that song.
Rescued is so good.
Yeah.
That's a tough exercise.
It is. Yeah, I mean, how can you pick the best of such a great album? I am kind of winding down toward the end of Everything in Transit, believe it or not. There's only one left that I haven't done yet. So, and it obviously did not make my top 3, but I love the song, and I will be covering it probably closer to August when it's the 2-year or the 20-year mark is what I'm thinking. That's my plan.
All right, we're free in August. Just
All
give
right,
us a ring.
yeah,
We're good.
Yeah. So study up on that final track that I have not covered yet. Anything else before we wrap up for tonight?
Yeah, man, this is super fun. It's crazy. We used to spend, an hour and a half or 2 hours talking about an entire discography, and now we spend an hour and a half talking about just one album. And with you, we spend an hour and a half, 2 hours talking about one song. But that just speaks to, how good Jax Mannequin is, how good this album is, how good Andrew is, and how good you are, Steve. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. I listened to this song 400 times in a row just for this episode, and I really did.
2025 Spotify, or I don't know, I can't remember if you use Spotify, but if you do, it'll be your top song on Spotify at the end of the year. Just watch out.
He'll be the one on that. Yeah, he'll be like, "Hey, it's Andrew McMahon.
Yeah.
Thanks for being my biggest
Oh,
fan
yeah,
this
you'll
year."
get that video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, thank you guys so much for coming on. Tell everybody where to find you guys on the socials or out there on the internets.
If you're in your podcast player, just search for High School Never Ends, a Pop Punk Dad podcast. Not the Bowling for Soup song, but you can listen to that absolutely too. Website is hsnepod.com, like High School Never Ends Pod, and on the socials at hsnepod.
Cool. I'll keep on listening as long as you guys keep recording. So all the different things you guys are doing. I love how you're varying it up lately. You've got these mini series each month, so it's a lot of fun. So thank you guys.
Dude, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
And anyone else listening out there, if you want to hit me up, email somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com if you like email, or like a lot of people, DM me on Instagram, or feel free to comment on any of the posts or anything. And I love interacting with other Andrew fans. It's so much fun to talk music, as you can see on this podcast. That's what I love to do here. And then, check out High School Never Ends, of course. A lot of fun stuff going on over there. This is Morning. It's when I spend the most time thinking about what I've given up.